Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Library Trustees, meeting of February 13th, 2024. The time is 6:01 p.m. and I'll invite Ginger to call the roll.
All right, Trustee Ando,
Here.
Trustee Cortez,
Here.
Trustee Kyle, Trustee Lee,
Here.
Chair Vadot.
Here. And now I'll invite Ginger to explain how the public can participate in the agenda.
Thank you, Chair Vadot. This meeting will be held in person and is being recorded and streamed live to Zoom at the link on the agenda. You may participate in person to provide public comment. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. You may also submit your comments by email by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. We are offering closed captioning for this evening's meeting on Zoom. Select the live transcript button on Zoom to enable this feature.
There's a diamond body.
Oh.
You are Ginger. It's a fallout. Yes.
Thank you, Ginger.
Luckily, all of our presenters are in person.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
All right, so I'll call the first item on the agenda, which is approval of the regular meeting minutes of November 14th, 2023. Are there any questions about those? I don't think we have anyone attending online, but
No.
Okay.
And we also aren't taking comment from.
So first,
I had to remind myself driving over here as well.
first meeting of the year, it's got to shake off the rust.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I will ask for a motion to approve.
Motion.
I can second.
Ginger, please call the roll.
Trustee Ando,
Aye.
Trustee Cortez,
Aye.
Trustee Kyle, Trustee Lee,
Aye.
Chair Vadot.
Aye. Thank you, Ginger. Next is open time for public expression. So since there is no one, we can move past it. So move to item number 2 on the agenda, which is special presentations, to the staff presentation on Miranda.
Yes, that's why I'm here. Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Court. I'm the supervising librarian for the city of San Rafael. I think we've all met before. Happy New Year, happy Lunar New Year. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. I'm here to give an overview of MarinNet and talk about MarinNet. So let me get my screen share going. Great. Super. So at the San Rafael Library, we use the word MarinNet all the time. And we realized we wanted to make sure we're clear on what we mean when we say MarinNet. So I'm here for a brief overview and any questions that you might have. So let's start with the basics. What is MarinNet? MarinNet is a consortium of libraries. And consortium just means libraries that are independently staffed, independently managed, but that have a relationship with one another. And the MarinNet consortium was started in 1991 with 4 libraries in Marin. So San Rafael was a founding member of MarinNet, and gradually over time, all of the libraries in Marin have joined the consortium. So it now connects all the public and college libraries in Marin County. Sorry. In terms of the member libraries, this is what that means. On the left, you'll see the city libraries, so San Rafael, obviously, and then some other cities in Marin, Mill Valley, Sausalito, San Anselmo. You'll also see the Marin County Free Library on the right. That's the county library, which was originally established to serve the unincorporated areas of the county, some of which have become incorporated since its founding. So the big 4 there are Fairfax, Corte Madera, Civic Center, and Novato. Then the smaller branches of Marin City and South Novato, and 4 West Marin branches, Stinson Beach, Bolinas, Inverness, and Point Reyes Station. You'll also see the college libraries in Marin on that list. So that's Dominican University and the College of Marin. They were the last members to join. I believe College of Marin joined in 2014, and we're very happy to have them aboard. The college libraries meet the needs of our patrons who are reading very deeply in an area, who are doing academic research, or who are otherwise off the beaten path of what a public library can provide. So that's who belongs to MarinNet. Incidentally, I don't know the origin of the name. It strikes me as kind of a 90s, when everything was this net and that net. I don't actually know if it's an
I think it is an acronym.
I think it is
And
too.
I think it's very, legacy.
Right.
The acronym doesn't match what the
Right.
consortium does anymore.
I think they may have kind of jimmied the acronym in to make it say Marin, but that feels like a trivia question for another time. So anyway.
I still think it's mentioned later, but the MarinNet is kind of administered or by a JPA. Or do we have that? Is that a new later?
It's not a joint
Okay.
powers authority.
Yeah, so we do have a JPA that was established in 1997 and hasn't really been changed much since.
Right. And as another fun fact, there's actually a consortium within the consortium. The Belvedere Tiburon Library is also governed, I believe, by
It's like a special district.
yeah.
It's
So-
not technically, it's not a city, it's not a municipal, it's a special district.
Yeah. So we have circles within circles there. And the administrative nature of those consortiums is always conducted at a pretty high level, and I'll get to that later. But to move on, my next slide is about what it means for our patrons to belong to MarinNet, right? So what do you get with a MarinNet library card? And as I always tell folks in the library, the card we issue says San Rafael, but it works anywhere in Marin County. And the way it works is, number one, we have a joint catalog for all of our materials. I'm sure you've had the experience of looking up whether we have a book in the San Rafael library, and it also shows you whether copies are available in Mill Valley or Sausalito or somewhere else in the county. And if items are available that you want that aren't in San Rafael, we offer reciprocal borrowing, lending, and returns. So you can request an item from another library to be picked up at the library of your choosing. You could walk into another library, you could walk into Mill Valley with your San Rafael card and use it. If you check out materials from Mill Valley, you can return them at San Rafael and vice versa. And hopefully that is a seamless process for our patrons. If you've ever wondered how all that is accomplished, we have a delivery service between all the libraries that operate 6 days a week. There's 2 trucks, 2 routes. There's a route that kind of goes down the 101 and covers those libraries. And there's one that makes the big swing out to West Marin and does the county route. So if you returned an item at Mill Valley, let's say, that belonged to San Rafael, it goes onto the truck, it's sorted at the MarinNet headquarters, which are off of Lucas Valley Road in a big county building there. And then hopefully are placed into the correct bin and come back to us at San Rafael. So that's all kind of the back end of how that works. So in terms of physical items that your MarinNet card gets you, in San Rafael, we have 96,000 items in our 3 locations. As you know, we have about 10,000 at the Pickleweed Library, 5,000 at the Northgate Mall, and the rest are downtown. So with your San Rafael card, you can access those items. That's books, but it's also books on CD, DVDs, music CDs, video games, every kind of physical item that you can take. So when you consider MarinNet as a whole, there are 927,000 physical items in MarinNet. So that's almost 10 times as many that you can access with a San Rafael card by virtue of our membership in MarinNet. We also offer a service called Link Plus that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So Link Plus is kind of the modern equivalent of the old interlibrary loan. When I was a young person, interlibrary loan was like, if your library didn't have what you needed, they would write to or call another library and say, hey, we don't have this thing. It looks like you have this thing. Can we borrow this thing? And then they would kind of work out ad hoc the loan arrangement between the 2 libraries, which was great, but very manual and very staff intensive. So Link Plus is a coordinated system of public and college academic libraries within all of California and some of Nevada that allows folks to request items the same way they would using our catalog. There's a separate catalog for Link Plus. And within the Link Plus membership, it contains dozens of libraries. We have 11 million physical items in Link Plus. So that's obviously a great benefit to our patrons. Again, if they're reading deeply in an academic area, if they're off the beaten path, if they have a niche interest, the Link Plus collection is a great way to meet that need. So that covers the physical items that you can access as part of MarinNet. And there's also the matter of digital resources. Oh, I forgot I put this slide in. So all of our catalog pages, this is a screenshot of our catalog. They always prompt you to search in Link Plus, but that option becomes most evident when you do a search and you don't get any results. So here I've done a search for the most unusual book possible, and when no results are found, it prompts you to try your search in Link Plus. And you can see below, there's a little explainer, what is Link Plus. We all agree that that name is maybe not the most indicative of what the service does. And so people often don't know what Link Plus is. Yeah. So you can find that on any catalog page, and staff at the library are more than willing to assist with placing holds, but it's just a matter of entering your library card number and PIN. Okay, so that was physical items. Let's talk about shared digital resources. This is a very busy slide because it turns out MarinNet also does pool some resources to buy shared digital resources, and these are things that are accessible to all MarinNet card. This is kind of the greatest hits. In fact, this is not exhaustive, but I thought you might like to see some of our more popular digital offerings. So we've got Ancestry.com, the genealogy service. We've got Mango Languages, which is a pretty cool language learning app and website. We've got the museum passes. Our Discovering Go program allows you to print passes for museums and attractions all over California, including some of the heavy hitters like the Exploratorium, California Academy of Sciences, SF MoMA, and then also a lot of like smaller attractions that can be a fun way to spend a weekend, is to see what's available on Discover and Go. Digital newspapers, Libby, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, that's our largest collection of bestsellers in ebook and e-audio format. And then just skipping lightly over it, we actually have a ton of learning resources for folks who need help with basic technology skills. They're job seekers, they're veterans, they're students, they need tutoring help. That's that kind of next to last bullet point there. There's a ton of kind of learning resources there designed for our patrons. So that's the kind of thing that MarinNet jointly buys as digital resources, and that's available to all cardholders. Okay. How does MarinNet work? What is the structure? So it's administratively managed by a board of directors. Catherine is our representative on the board of directors. It generally is the directors of the constituent libraries. And they meet monthly for high-level discussion, financial decisions, snacks. I don't know.
We're really doing good stuff.
That's the hex.
There's a Keurig machine, I believe, but.
So that group meets monthly. There are also 3 dedicated staff at MarinNet who we very much depend on. We have a systems librarian called Jessica. She's fantastic. We would all be lost without her. And 2 library technical assistants. And they do things like, in the same way that our catalog is connected, the back end of our library is connected. The inventory system we use for all the items is shared between all of us. And so we use the MarinNet staff for things like, if we were running out of library cards and needed to print a new run, they'll give us the next run of barcode numbers that haven't been duplicated before, so we don't accidentally double the library card numbers. Same thing with the barcodes that go on the front of the physical items. They manage all of that, and other like very database-y detailed things that are required to operate all of these libraries jointly and together. So 3 dedicated staff, and then we have a number of working groups and listservs. And so what those are is groups that meet quarterly, usually to discuss those 4 areas: cataloging, circulation, digital resources, and youth services. And we have an email list for each of those interest areas where people can discuss common practices, agree on collective action, and yeah, just talk about our shared interest in how we pursue those areas of our work. And finally, we do have an intranet with our shared training manuals and information that all new staff need to know about how the things that we do that are all the same, and that we need to all do the same in order for the consortium to function. So that's the structure of MarinNet. that's all the material I prepared, but I welcome any comments, questions, or thoughts that have occurred to you as I've gone over this, or anything in general about Marinette.
One thing I just wanted to, one of the reasons we wanted to bring this presentation today is that the Marinette Board of Directors has been doing some strategic planning and some kind of looking at our priorities. And I was thinking about presenting that to you today, and then I thought, hey, let's make sure people understand what Marinette is. Because that's important context, and I know a lot of you are newer to the board and may already be totally familiar with this, but hopefully some of it was new information. And one thing I just wanted to kind of point out that we've been talking a lot about circulation and the growth of like online, our e-resources. And you know, a lot of the purchasing for our e-resources is done through Marinette. And I was looking today at what we got the budgets for next year, and the San Rafael's, what we pay into Marinette next year is about $340,000. So it's a lot. That's a large part of our budget. But look, I also looked at the Marinette, what is their digital budget for digital resources budget for next year? And it's about $320,000. So we're really we're getting a lot for what we put in.
That was my question, because if
Yeah.
I, recall from many years before, it was that we were putting in a more significant portion than other
We
libraries.
do. There's a cost sharing formula that
Yeah.
was established in 1997. And one of the recommendations that came out of the recent strategic planning process was looking at how we can incorporate more of an equity component to that. So the cost share currently is based off of population,
Yeah.
circulation, and number of items. So it's kind of like, what's your share of that? Those were kind of the proxies for how much is your population using the Marinette resources. And so there is a conversation about, is there a way to incorporate an equity component in there? Because budgets, for example, are not part of the cost sharing formula. So that is part of the conversation. But San Rafael, if you look at that list, we do pay the second most of any agency. MCFL by far pays the most, but we are also the second largest jurisdiction, pretty substantially. So I think our percentage of the total Marinette fluctuates, but it's about 16% of the total Marinette budget. Which, given San Rafael's size compared to the rest of the county, doesn't seem totally unreasonable to me. And I think our patrons our community gets a lot from being part of the consortium that we wouldn't be able to replace if we were to go it alone.
So is your position, because I remember Henry's position was a little bit
Yeah, I
different,
know.
so is your position sort of shifted to what you are now, sort of what you're saying, like
I
you
think
feel
my
equitable?
position has always
Oh, okay, got
seen
it.
the benefit of it. I think
Okay.
Henry came from kind of a different background. His former agencies were not, my understanding is not part of a consortium, and were able to kind of go it
Oh, I
alone.
see.
I mean, just looking at our building, and looking at the fact that we have access to 10 times the
Yeah.
number of physical items, if we just can't, there's just no physical way we could replace what our patrons have access to.
Got it.
So that's my perspective
Yeah.
on it. I think obviously with any large complicated partnership, there's highs and lows, right? There's benefits and there's challenges. I think from the patrons' perspective, and from the community perspective, there aren't a lot of negatives.
Right.
Most of the negatives come more on the, just the complexities of administering and kind of being bound in our operations by decisions made by other agencies. That can be challenging, right? But if you look at it from the community perspective,
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah.
Katie, is there anyone on I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
just to follow up, is there anyone that's on, I was trying to like go through Marin in my head,
Mhm.
that is not in there anymore?
Mhm.
No, okay, everyone's on it now.
Yeah,
Okay,
everybody's on board.
okay,
This is a very elegant way to get back to that slide. So That's everyone.
Okay.
And it was kind of a slow. Slow process getting everyone on. Like I say, the college libraries joined last and we're very happy to have them.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Al.
Oh, no, no need to apologize. I was just kind of follow up on what you were saying. What, is there an operational challenge that, like, or is there some sort of, like, example you could point to that, you know, San Rafael is bound in a way that maybe is not beneficial? Like, and I mean, I
I'll look
understand
at
that.
you, Katie. I mean,
There's nothing I could say that would outweigh the benefit to the
Oh, I
patron,
understand.
but, yeah, I mean, Catherine can speak more to this than I, but, you know, financial decisions about Marinette need to be made jointly by the board of directors and everyone has an equal vote there, so it's like I can't count that high, it's like a 10-legged race, right?
right, I think, yeah, there is a provision in the current JPA that all financial decisions, I believe, need to be unanimous.
Correct.
Which in my year and a half tenure with Marinette has never been an issue so far that I have been part of. So that didn't immediately come to mind, but I could see that would be.
Well, with regard to this digital resource slide, this is the reason, so if all that, so the digital resources working group helps decide and the board of directors on these shared ones, if a unanimous decision cannot be reached, then libraries may buy something individually. For example, something we buy in San Rafael that is not a shared resource is Canopy, which is a great like indie and documentary film streaming site. That's just the first example I can think of. Or something like Hoopla.
So like this drivingtest.com, I mean, driving.
Oh,
education, yes,
drivingtest.com, yeah, that's
driving
the,
education.
yeah,
Online
the
driving education.
California driver's license
That's
stuff.
interesting thing.
Yeah, I think it's all around, you know, the unanimous agreement.
Hmm.
But that's difficult. And then just administratively, you know, every library is a little different and it's hard to get us pointed all in the same direction, sometimes just in terms of processes. And that's not something that would hopefully affect patrons. But an example of that is that although we do offer reciprocal borrowing and lending, if you, Catherine, check out a load of Mill Valley items and then something happens, I don't have the flexibility at San Rafael to waive the fines for another agency. So I have a lot of conversations with patrons where I say, those items actually belong to Mill Valley, you'll need to speak with them. And then that's an additional phone call or visit for the patron. And maybe they didn't even know those items were from Mill Valley. They don't, you know, but it can become an issue when a large bill is involved.
I'm also wondering because of Santa Fe is paying second highest paying library, but Marin County Free Library, there are how many are like 8, 7 of them?
10, they have 10 locations. And
10 locations. So they're considered as a one, because they are the highest paying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pay about 50%.
Oh,
Yeah,
50%.
Marinette.
So because of the.
And they, not only do they pay about 50% of Marinette expenses, but Marinette is actually housed within the county, so the county kind of absorbs all of their HR, their legal, their finance,
Marinette
so
headquarters is in a county-owned
it's gonna
building.
they pay for their rent, you know, so there's a lot of,
Overhead.
they get a lot of overhead for free from the county as well.
Are they like, there's one board of director from that whole 10 libraries?
Yes, there is and I'll look this up a little, I'll make sure I'm more familiar with it before our next meeting. But there is the MCFL director has a little bit more power than all the other directors. And I can't remember how off the top of my head, but there's some element where I think certain decisions cannot be made without the county's support because of their disproportionate. And that has been a point of contention in the past as well. The current, and that was pointed out in the strategic plan that if you were to have an MCFL director that was not supportive or really kind of at loggerheads with every other agency, that would make the consortium very ineffective. At the moment, we have the MCFL director who's very collaborative, very focused on partnerships, very supportive of Marinette. So that hasn't been a problem at this
It's easy, isn't it? And I'm just wondering, because since we have a tracking kind of the library patrons, like a barcode, everybody has each, basically record of what they're checking out, what they're downloading, Libby or Discover and Go. Is there a way to easily like compare it, how much our patrons using it compared to other city
That's the
libraries?
circulation.
Circulation?
Yeah.
Is it like something, pull out the number, kind of saying, you're not really using them much compared to Newberry veterans using heavily on Libby or something, then you could just say, like, there's like a mathematical
Yeah, I
balance.
mean, our circulation numbers play into how much we
Oh,
pay.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, so you have that.
Yeah, so
already.
they pull that
Okay,
every year
got
for
it.
all of us.
Every year.
Yeah, every year the cost sharing formula changes
Yeah.
based on those three. Yeah.
Also, I have noticed it, there's several people mentioned, I have a friends in Fairfax or San Anselmo, even Novato. When there's books to be picked up, we are traveling somewhere here, they actually picking up from Santa Fe Public Library, pick up.
Yeah, because
instead-
we're open 7 days a week, so we're a popular pickup.
Yeah, and also it's like there's a, thoroughfare and the second
Yeah,
and third
it's-
street going to San Anselmo Fairfax, because it's easier for them to go San Anselmo, there's no parking and library, so they are heavily using our library just
Which
to
is
pick up.
interesting because we don't have great parking either, but.
But it's like a quick
Yeah.
grab and go, I think it seems like a lot easier for them just to
Yeah, and that's true at there are certain libraries that are
have that,
very popular pickup. South Novato is also very hot because it's right next to the freeway and
yeah,
that's all factored
yeah.
in.
The-
Those folks would not be counted as our patrons. They are card holders elsewhere,
Okay,
but that item moving in and out of the building would count as circulation.
circulation for Santa Fe, okay,
Yeah, it's definitely complex.
yeah. It's good too.
For us too, sometimes it's complicated, and if you haven't worked in a library or lived in an area with a consortium before, it can be difficult to contemplate that the libraries are so connected. But yeah, it's a great benefit for the patrons for sure. Another similar consortium in the Bay Area is the Peninsula Library System. All of the libraries in San Mateo County are connected in a similar way. So and then Santa Clara County, one county down, they don't have that. Like Palo Alto is a solo library, Mountain View, they all do their own thing. So there's different ways to run things.
I had a question. I don't know if this is a quick answer. If it's not, we can take it offline. So I didn't realize that cities like Novato and Fairfax are part of the county, so they contract with the county to run their libraries. I'm not sure
So
if it's
the county
again,
is well, my understanding is a big portion of the county's budget is through parcel tax.
Okay.
And those Fairfax, Novato, anyone served by a Marin Library pays that, Marin County Library pays that parcel tax to the county.
I see.
Correct,
That-
yeah.
Yeah.
I happen to live in a county area.
Okay.
And the reason it's set up that way is Marin County Free Library was formed in the 20s or 30s, and back then Fairfax and Nevada were not yet incorporated, so they were part of, that's
So
like a
it's
historical. Yeah, so it's
Interesting.
a historical situation that has persisted.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
fun facts.
So they operate like branches.
Correct,
Yeah.
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 And all of those 10 libraries are administratively managed and staffed by one agency.
Seems like when I see the barcode, often Corte Madera books doesn't say it, it's Corte Madera, it's like a Marin.
It's Marin County.
Free, and then Fairfax one says Fairfax, and Novato one say Novato, but some of those 10 libraries, some of them doesn't say which library coming from, so I sometimes like scratching my bag and.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason we wanted to bring this up is we know it's confusing sometimes for patrons and even for us, what does that mean? We're in County Free Library,
Yeah.
right?
Well, thank you. Oh, and by the way, my comment would be, I mean, I've used it so much now, it's very helpful to get a little background on it, so thanks.
It
You're
works.
welcome. Now you know, right?
One,
Don't stop
I have
sharing.
one last question about Discover and Go.
Mhm.
If it's a, I don't know, it's not run by, it's a different, like almost like a Libby-like company
Mhm.
manages it. And I have some frustrations about using their service, so I don't know if
Yes.
there's something to be improved or not.
We understand,
Yeah.
yeah. The museum passes are very much governed as a courtesy by the museums themselves. So some of the museums that only offer one pass a year or
Yeah.
one a quarter,
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that's
it's,
totally
they're
fine.
giving us free stuff and
Mm,
we take what they
Mm.
can offer.
mm,
But yeah, that's great feedback.
mm. It's just a more of the, when the people want to go, it seems like what I have noticed is like, like Khan Academy will be available April, tickets available like March, like February 1st or
They
something.
release them on the first of the month.
Yeah, and then you don't remember to reserve it,
I know,
and it's gone.
And then they're all gone. I
Yeah,
know.
so
I know.
that was something that I tell my friends, like, this is great service, but when they are able to go, it's gone. It's like, it never seems like only the folks who's very planned.
Yeah, tie a string around your finger. Those are probably the most popular and they go fast.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they are free.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been benefiting a lot of time with the
Yeah, for
kids.
sure.
Yeah, in the past.
Well, thank you very much. See you again.
I'm gonna head back
Next time.
over to the library.
Last hour.
Yeah, last hour.
Right, we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is the report on the library operational assessment. Kathy?
That is me. There we go. Oh. I didn't realize it moved, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so, hello, everybody, again. Yeah, I wanted to present a little bit tonight on a project that we are kind of in the very early stages of taking on and will likely last probably at least a year or more in terms of how we operationalize any of the outcomes from this. But just to give a little bit of context of why we're here, why we're doing this. So over the past 5 years, there's been a lot of changes at the library. We combined the community services and library departments. We opened the Northgate Branch Library as a pop-up for 1 month, and 6 years later, we're still operating it. Was originally done in partnership with MCFL. Now we're the sole provider. We implemented, I don't even know how many folks here realize it, or what kind of communication was done about this, but we implemented a new organizational structure where we used to be kind of branches, adults, children's. We now have more based on like programming, outreach, collections, and then downtown and branches, so that it's kind of a little bit more fluid. We also transitioned, there was a pandemic in that time. We closed, we partially opened, and then we fully reopened. And in that time, we converted the programming space at the library that was transitioned into staff space for book processing. And, really there was a big need for that space for operations. We've also experienced significant staff of turnover at the leadership level in particular. We have all new staff in the last 5 years. But even at kind of at all levels of the division, all levels of the library, there's a lot of staff turnover with the pandemic. We saw a lot of retirements and new staff. So, Santa Fe is an organization. We pride ourselves on being an organization that embraces innovation. We embrace taking risks and making changes. And part of that process is evaluating how are those changes going? Are they having the impacts we hope that they would? Or, are there more kind of adjustments we want to make moving forward? So, part of that is looking at some of our data, and this is something, none of this data should be new. This was all what was shared with you all in November. Oh, maybe Jamie
Yeah.
wasn't here, so that's great. But, I think when we looked at that data, it told an interesting story, and it was really helpful preparing that presentation for the board, because what we saw, and this is a little bit different because I took the pandemic data out because it just, you don't quite see the trend lines as clearly because everything just drops those 2 years. But, over the last 5 years with the opening of Northgate, with some of our decisions about how we came back after the pandemic, our open hours have slowly gone up. I didn't put this in here just because of the scale doesn't work, but our staffing numbers have remained flat. And our total number of programs have gone down. They are starting to climb back up. I think post-pandemic, it took time for us to get back and to kind of, but those programs aren't going back up to where they were under this current model. Another piece of the data that we kind of look at is our library visitation. Maybe we're not offering as many programs, but are more people taking advantage of these open hours and coming through the door? And what we're saying is not yet. I think that 21, 22, even though I took out the 2 primary pandemic years, there's still obviously recovery from the pandemic going on. But our numbers are down pretty substantially over the pre-pandemic years. So, it's really impossible to attribute these trend lines to any one operational decision. But, I think what's clear is that things over time, we've made certain decisions that are having impacts on some of these numbers. And I think there's other numbers out there that we'll need to look at. We need to look at circulation. There's kind of the difference, which, are more people going online? Is that why we're seeing drops? And is it so we're still serving the same number of people, they're just accessing our resources differently. So there's definitely a lot of nuance in this and a lot to dig into, which is one of the reasons we want to do an operational assessment. So I think, we have limited resources, and it's really important for us to understand, are we investing our staff time, which is our most precious resource, in the most effective and efficient way to meet the needs of our community? And I think, one way to look at this is to look at the data, to look at our staff, the staff input, and to also look at best practices in the field and what are other organizations doing. So, with all the change that we've been going through, and also with the downtown renovation kind of on the horizon, it's kind of a good time to evaluate, how are things going, and are we providing the level of service that we want? And are we providing, and it's not just about the level of service, there's a lot of changes that we went through. And so these are kind of the primary questions that we're looking at evaluating in this operational assessment. Of course, service level is really important, but I actually think we're probably going to start at some of the more, and a lot of this assessment is going to focus more on our internal operations. Do we have the right organizational structure to support our staff in providing a diverse, kind of well-rounded level of service to our community? Are there adjustments to our work processes to make sure our staff are able to work efficiently and effectively, and to feel supported, and to provide to help us improve our library operations and services? And so to do this, we're bringing in Jane Light, who is a longtime library consultant. She's been a library consultant for, I think, 2 or 3 decades now. And prior to that, she was a library director for another 3 decades. She was the library director of San Jose and Redwood City. She just comes with a wealth of, she's done these types of assessments for many, many other libraries in California, and specifically Northern California. And And so she's gonna be coming in, she's gonna review our current data, looking at our visitation, our circulation, our programs, look at it over time and look at recent trends and changes. She's gonna also identify peer municipal libraries to provide comparative information on that sort of data, as well as on kind of their operational processes. She's gonna interview pretty much every staff member at the library to get an understanding of their operational and structural challenges and work processes, and identify opportunities for improvements. And she's gonna review our organizational structure and positions to make sure we've got the right setup to support where we want to go as an agency. The exact timeline of this, I kind of mentioned, we have a couple of vacancies that we haven't filled yet because we want to conduct this assessment first. So I do, recognizing that our staff are our most valuable resource, we are going to focus on a lot of that internal operations first, kind of make sure internally we identify any gaps or opportunities for improvement, and then look at kind of some of the service level, if there are any service level changes we might want to make. And I think, again, that anything around service level changes would be rolled out probably after we reopen from the downtown closure, and would be presented to this board before any decisions are made. So that's my presentation. I'm really excited about this project. I think in my time as the director, I've heard a lot of great ideas and input from staff about honestly, specifically like the value of children's and adults, and how important it is to kind of invest in those areas. Thoughts about, how our branches operate. I think there's a lot of great ideas. And I think we need things like the AMH, and I think, or other kind of internal operational processes around circulation. And I think we really want to take a kind of comprehensive look at that. And this is the process that we're going to be kicking off.
Thank you.
I do have one question then, and I'm sorry, I think you probably talked about this at the November meeting, and I don't remember, but I noticed on the graph about hours and programs, like, is there a quick summary that you can give as to what programs were, or what the nature of the programs that were cut? Because my family no longer uses a lot of the programs, so I'm just curious as to, can you characterize the bulk of that delta between, what is it, 500 or 500 and 100? Or is it a more complicated answer, I guess, is my question.
The answer is I don't know yet.
Okay.
That it's a great question, and I'm just starting to, we have the high level, like what is reported to the state. And as we're preparing to work with Jane, I've been pulling all of our much more detail. We have that data program by program. So I'm just literally this morning was putting it together, and I did 2021. I've done 2022, but I have to, and to be honest, some of it is staffing change. So like we were kind of scrambling, where do we find the data pre-pandemic? And luckily Gender is amazing and has kept it all. So we do have it. But I think it's a great question, and it's something I want to dig into as well. Yeah.
And I
And I think, part of it was also pandemic. Everything closed, everything stopped. We lost a bunch of staff that were doing some of those programs, just kind of over. And as we reopened, there was a lot of hesitancy around in-person programs. We lost our programmatic space. So all of our programs are either online or outdoors or in council chambers, so that's been another huge restriction on our ability to do programming, which is one of the reasons why with the renovation, we really want to bring back that programming space and figure out another option for staff space. So I think there's a lot that went into it. And I do think that space is one of the big, is a big
Yeah.
factor there. And honestly, the 3 locations that really spreads staff in a different way that we weren't before. And I do not foresee, reducing locations as an outcome of this at all. That didn't even hit me till now, but that's just something we're gonna have to balance and figure out how we,
That's
do
fine.
that. Yeah.
Second question, and I know maybe we can't anticipate what's going to happen regarding a possible new library or a different setup in the library, but will she have the ability, the consultant, to look at how, if we were to have a different situation physically, to look at that? It would be,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to know that we've thought about that as part of the program that the private people are taking to possibly go.
I got you.
You know what I'm trying to get
Yeah, I
at, but I can't.
But even, and I think this is something I somehow overlooked it in this presentation and my staff report, but we are, regardless of whether there's a new library or not, I think there will see benefits to additional staff. And I think Measure D is up for renewal in 2026. And it will be good for us to know, what would that staffing look like in an ideal world? How much would that cost? And then kind of figure out from there, is that something Measure D could support in the future? So there is part of her contract will be looking at kind of future opportunities. By the time we get to that, we will know whether or not that has been successful, if we're planning for operations at our current location or planning for operations at a new location, and what would that need to look
Oh,
like? Yeah,
that's-
definitely.
This consultant person was hired by the mayor, or is it somebody deciding? It's like you are deciding to hire this
Yeah.
contractor? Okay.
Yeah.
So is she going to be consulting for 6 months or a year?
I think at the moment, we're still working on the contract. It hasn't been signed yet. I think probably, I can't remember what the term was on it. I mean, again, I would imagine this will go on for at least, we'll probably have the recommendations within the year. And then it'll be up to us how we roll them out and how we implement them. beyond.
Did she ever help the other libraries like
Yeah.
this?
Many. Yeah, I recently met, one of the ways I got connected to her was I met with Sam Bruno, and she just conducted a similar assessment for them that they were very happy with. Our assistant city manager came from Hayward, and he worked with her
Mhm.
on a project there. She actually, I think, was their interim director for a little while as well.
Oh,
So she's pretty, she's done a lot of this type of work.
Jim, anything?
A lot of questions. I wasn't here in November, so, I'd be interested if, when you're sort of giving us updates, to sort of see what our budget line in comparison to like the staffing, like, has it changed? Like, has our budget stayed the same and our staffing levels changed the same, or is there a shift there? And maybe if you don't have that answer,
I
like, if we
don't know
can.
it off the top of my head, just from my experience with budgeting and other city departments, our non-personnel line has probably remained pretty flat. And our personnel expenses go up over time because we do have annual cost of living increases. So that our number of FTE remains largely flat. I know that over the past 5 years, there have been some reorganizations in terms of like making one part-time position full-time, and so the FTE may have altered slightly, but not significantly. And I mean, Jinder, jump in if I am saying anything wrong, because he's, I think during the pandemic, we did see some budget cuts. Our non-personnel expenses are back to where they were pre-pandemic, and our personnel expenses continue to increase over time with cost of living adjustments.
Okay, and then can we see, so like this library visits is not telling the whole story, right? Like, obviously, so I'd be curious to know, like, just as we were talking about, as Katie was saying, like, well, what are our circulation numbers? Have they gone up? What is like the other, I mean, you've manually operated now with like the RFIDs, right? But like, what is that? So it's changing what staffing is doing. So I'd be curious, like, if you can show a graph of like how the circulation numbers are, what the online use numbers are.
We did have some circulation. If I remember correctly. No, I'm not gonna say it because I probably am not remembering correctly. I do know that last year there was a spike in circulation. And we actually think that may be an error, because what we've seen is that last year there's this huge increase in circulation, and it was MarinNet wide. Every agency saw this very significant spike, and now it's dropped back. It's still like the overall trend is up. I think this was digital resource circulations. And this is where I can't remember if it was all circulation or digital or physical items, but that's kind of, it has been that every Marina agency has that huge uptick last year and then kind of back to a more normal growth chart. So I think circulation is growing, but there's something odd in the data that we need to look at.
Can you
But yeah.
separate that by online use, like of online programming, like how that's increased or not?
So
And does
the program numbers include our online programs, and we can separate online versus in-person programs. We have that data separated out.
I meant more of like because to
Like digital
me,
resources.
yes, so to me, like I used to come to the library all the time. I like barely come anymore, right? But we still use it and we still check things out in that sense. So I'm curious of like, I think a lot of people have shifted to just using online resources. So I'd be curious to see sort of a graph.
Definitely is going to be part of the bigger conversation. I think these were just, this is just like one piece of a much bigger picture and a much more complicated
I could
conversation.
jump in really quick, because like when, I don't know if it was in November, maybe it was even earlier, but we had that, but I know you weren't there, Jamie, but like we had like, I think it was like 10 or 12 different charts. It was like, and it talked about circulation, talked about different things. And I think like we could talk about the one or two examples here, but I mean, like, I think the point is like, what's the consultant gonna do? Because like, I mean, I don't know if you also have the data off the top of your head to like answer all of our questions about the data, because I have concerns about the fact that the, hours have gone up, programming's gone down, either pre-pandemic or library visits, that could go trend in the right direction, what have you, but is that something that really what we're talking about, or are we talking about, the actual consultant and what she's gonna do?
Well, I think it's two. So one is like, those questions come up because obviously, when a consultant comes in, they're going to make recommendations and changes, right? And a lot of that has to do with staffing. And so, I don't know what the turnover rate has been, but since I've been here, three new directors, right? And I know that is like a morale issue and all these other things, right? To do that, but I would hate to see us cutting staff or staff hours based on some things when like maybe there's these other services, right? Like these circulation pieces and these online services.
Right, I think that's
So
exactly what we want to look at. I think, it's we're not gonna be able to request more staff out of this, but we're also not gonna be cutting staff. If that,
Well, you don't know that, right?
well,
I've been in a lot of strategic planning and that's what they always say at the beginning of a strategic plan and then it
so this
changes.
strategic plan is driven by me,
Yeah,
not anyone else. I'm
Yeah.
the one who's kind of identified the need for this. And it's really more about structure. And do we have the right people in the right positions? Not do we have the right number of positions? One of the other pieces of data that I didn't put here, but that I've been looking at a lot is how our data compares to other libraries and how do our staff, and specifically, I've been looking at staffing numbers, FTE per open hours. And we have a lot of open hours for the number of staff that we have. So, if you look at us compared to other libraries, we have a lot of open hours for staff. So if you're, I just don't see, anyways, yes, of course, you never know what's gonna happen in the future. There could be a huge downturn, but there have been no talks at the city about any sort of staffing cuts. And I do not foresee that being if that were to ever happen, it wouldn't be for this.
got it.
It would be like some bigger,
Yeah.
massive recession.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Driven by economic
it would be driven by economic factors, not this.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
And I would just say that, when I was reading this over, and again, because I'm literally like in the middle of a strategic plan, but it's like, what I think sometimes consultants miss, and I mean, she obviously has a great resume, and so maybe she won't, but this is all talking sort of about some of like challenges in the process, but it's like, what are our benefits? Like, I know some of the reasons that we had more hours is we're a bigger city and we have, more community members who come to the library just for like a safe haven, right?
Right.
So it's like, I just hope that you, and the consultant sort of reflect on what you're doing really well and like your benefits and, the trust place and the safety, all the other things that you do well and not just focus on that. So that's sort
Yeah.
of my only.
And I think of anyone's staff feel that the most, like that benefit that provides.
Yeah.
And I will say, just from the few conversations I've had with Jane, she's very well aware that like cutting hours is, there has to be a great rationale and it has to be super well thought out if that's what the direction we would want to go.
When you say cut hours, that you mean the hours in operation, not.
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, like we want to open late on a Tuesday or something, like things like that. Like that's, I think would be so that we can have more time for staff meetings or staff can have more time for planning programming. Like those are kind of the things of like, we want to look at. Yeah. Right.
So I guess like, I think part of the concern, right, is that, I mean, this seemed like a big step, right? I think bringing in a consultant, I know Jamie, you've been here for a while, 2 years I've been on the board, it hasn't come up. I think, and like, we're just learning about it now, is it possible to, even though she won't have her recommendations for a while, is it possible to get updated along the way? Because I know you said like you have a contract hasn't been signed yet. I'm sure she'll develop some sort of work plan that she'll present to you. Is it possible to get updated on those
Absolutely.
rules?
Yeah.
I think that would also give.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely include it in my, staff report every month. And anytime where it feels like enough has happened, we've got enough recommendations that it would be worth a more kind of formal presentation. I can do that as well, absolutely.
And personally, I mean, I don't necessarily need to, like, I wouldn't care to see it every month, but like, at least, I think for me, the biggest deliverable would be to be able to see the work plan before she starts working. If she develops one.
I mean, we have a scope of work.
Well, yeah, if
Yeah.
that's what it is. then-
Yeah.
Then that would be something I'd like to see.
Yeah, I can, contracts are all public records, so if
Yeah.
that's something you want to see once it's executed,
Okay, cool.
sure that's included.
Appreciate it. No, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's being hidden or.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just like, I don't know that we're gonna have like something else
Other than.
the contract and the scope of work. I think she's probably just gonna jump right in and
Yeah.
interview staff and get, we're already gathering data and stuff, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Partly to Jamie's question. So we did get a packet of information back in October. And you may want to go back. It might answer some of your questions, Jamie, but there are.
What's the, yeah, what are the, what's the?
Oh, sorry. But anyway, so you can go back to the packet.
Hmm,
So this is about circulation, but it also actually answered my question about programs. Because it talked about the different,
Thank you.
the different type of library programs. It broke it down by whether they were for kids or for.
Oh, there you
Because
go.
I'll try to answer my,
I
Okay,
know,
so-
You were ahead of the game.
I have a packet here.
anyway, but
That's the October?
October.
Yeah,
yeah.
January.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm personally, I was one of those people, like every possible kids program, I'm signing up first to sign up. Downstairs, the children's room, and over the years, I noticed it, when there's program set up, then. At the time, Jacob, Tony and Margaret and Jill Smith, another
Margaret?
Jill.
Oh, Jill Harris.
Jill Harris, yeah. So they were often there downstairs, and they realize like it's gotten really busy for the parents with the kids. So they don't keep up with the programs. So sometimes the program sign up, only 3 people signed up, and they will call me and I will make a mass call to all the moms and we all show up and do the program. So it was successful, but some events I remember there's something going on, back to school night or something, so there's nobody show up. So I remember like one, like a glow stick throwing, all the staff are doing and no kids there. So things like that happen. And I personally feel like this really, the traffic is so bad around here. I mean, I personally, the parents like can't go to library for this 1 hour event and go home and cook dinner or something like that. So there's a times that I realize, oh, it just doesn't quite work out, even though it's a good intention, the timing of that Thursday afternoon just didn't work out. So if that's what I felt like there's a whole lot more programmers there, but slowly kind of
Yeah, so maybe they weren't
yeah.
being utilized.
Yeah,
And as I can look at the chart,
yeah,
a lot of them were the children's program, so that may fit with that narrative about
yeah.
how those were working for you as parents. So,
Yeah, especially working
with
parents.
kids, yeah.
Yeah, working parents
Thanks.
are.
I don't remember any of this, but this is really great because it shows sort of these increases that
Yeah.
we're doing. I don't have any other questions there, but this is helpful.
Great. So thank you, Captain. And I guess we'll wait to hear more. Then move on to item 4, which is the staff liaison report, other brief program updates or reports on any meetings, conferences, and more seminars.
Right, so I did want to, yeah, that's me. I did want to let you all know that Jill has officially resigned from their position with the city, so we will be launching a new recruitment for a new assistant director. I am potentially looking at trying to bring in someone on an interim basis because a recruitment will take into the summer, and we've got a lot of projects going and a lot happening right now. So we're reaching out to some retired library directors that are doing interim stints and seeing if anybody's available and interested. So we'll see. You all will kind of be updated on that, but we are also bringing on a recruiter to do a permanent recruitment.
Is there-
Is that like last time?
Yeah, that's what we did.
Is there internally the current staff, senior staff could step up for entry?
Not really for, no, not currently. Yeah. So, on to all the things that we got going on. We did an RFP for architectural design for the Pickleweed Branch remodel project. We got 6 submissions, which is pretty good for that type of RFP. So we're currently in the process of reviewing those submissions. A couple of, it's a good group of very qualified vendors, so that's exciting.
It's a RSP.
Request for proposal.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's all the jargon. So yeah, so basically just saying, hey, we're looking for an architect to do the design on this project. Who's interested? Send us your proposals. So that's exciting. We should, hopeful that we'll have someone kind of on board around April, and then we'll kind of start the community engagement process. The downtown, we're continuing the downtown renovation. We're continuing to refine the design. I'm hopeful that I'll come back in March with kind of an updated design. There have been a few changes, which I think folks here will be happy with. Just, yeah, some small changes to kind of the layout, particularly in the lobby, and so I'll present a more complete, my hope is that we'll have the designs ready to present in March, which we really should have them ready by then, because otherwise we're gonna be getting in trouble on our construction schedules. So speaking of we are going to be splitting the roof out from the rest of the construction to get the roof going sooner, because we can do that while the building is still open. And we just gotta get that thing fixed. It probably would be beneficial for the building not to leak while all the other construction is going. So I know, yeah. Anyways, we've had a lot of issues with the last few rain, few storms. We had the downstairs Carnegie flood, which that was actually not the roof. That was we have 2 pumps. They both went out. So they've been fixed and we're getting a 3rd pump. So hopefully that's that. And then the last storm, the elevator flooded, which was again, the children's area drain had just gotten so clogged and backed up that it was coming in from that patio. But anyway, so we're just, yeah. So we're still on track to start construction in September. We're starting to look more seriously at interim options, looking for downtown vacant storefronts that might be a fit. There's some challenges around ADA accessibility. We really would. We're figuring out if it's an absolute necessity that has to be ADA accessible, or just kind of what the requirements are for a temporary space, which could significantly limit, a lot of retail spaces are not designed for a public purpose and not designed to be kind of as universally accessible as our spaces are. So that's something we're looking at that, and of course cost, and then how many of these building owners actually want someone in there only for 6 or 7 months. So it's definitely going to be, we'll see, but we're starting to have those conversations with the business owners and the building owners, and we'll keep you updated on that as well. So I think at the moment, those are the big things, and then the Marin Net, we'll be presenting more on that next month as well. Questions?
Curious, do you have any pictures of the flooding or the damage?
We
And I'm
actually
seeing-
don't,
No.
it was sort of one of those situations of like, everyone was in crisis mode, like everything's flooded, there's power strips on the ground, call our Omar facilities right away, and he got out there immediately and got the pumps working again. And then as soon as the pumps started working, all the water went, and then we're like, oh, we should have taken a picture of the lake in the staff hallway or whatever.
Right. I'm thinking,
Luckily the only real damage was to like cardboard boxes and things.
Right.
None of the electronics or anything.
No books harmed.
No books,
No
the books were not on the ground, luckily. So yeah, luckily, there wasn't too much damage, and the carpeting that we have in the library, I have learned, is designed not to mold. It's mostly kind of made out of like synthetic plastic-y material.
The floor tile that you peel it up and wash it and put it back.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I say that because there are, maybe the Friends of the Library
Well, the Friends of the
Yeah,
Library
okay.
had their desk down there,
Yeah.
and so they would let
Okay,
them know
it
you
just-
can't come in for a few days,
Yeah.
because it's a little,
A
it's a
good
little
visual
swampy.
for,
Yeah,
an argument for,
I know. Well, and it's, I was sort of like, is there anything, because the project we're doing isn't really addressing what caused
That's right.
that. It's just a function of how the building is situated, you know?
yeah, yeah.
It was a really heavy rain. We
We
haven't.
have more coming, so hopefully.
Well, Larry, that's your.
Call me. Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Moving on to number 5, reports on any meetings, conferences, or something that's attended by board members. Anything? All right. There you have it. So that will adjourn the meeting. 7:12, 7, yeah, 7.